So this video is about Cardano. I've not talked about this for a long time. If you know me, I've been in Cardano a few times in the cycles, but is it too late to buy? Where can it go? A little bit of a price prediction sort of situation regarding the BTC pair and most importantly the USD pair. $5 plus, $10 plus. Some people are even saying $50, which I find a bit barbaric, but let's get into it. So if you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you're in Cardano. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did a Technical Tuesday on my Patreon. Covered about a potential correction into a level of demand, and this is what's happened. We've literally went to it, and we're all the way up to this extension level, which you could technically start to correct from that point. In my opinion, it's normally quite a big dicey level. Now, obviously, has in a way, and it's went all the way down here. So even if we're going to reinvent the wheel a little bit, talk about the technicals, and if this is a bit too much over information for you, I do apologize. But even from this impulse here, we've went into nearly the 618 levels and continue going higher. So yeah, it's looking pretty interesting in terms of the trend, and it's somewhat parabolic, which is really good to see. And I often talk about, well, why didn't I go back in? I just didn't. I should have done, really. But a bit of history. I invested literally a week after the ICO in 2017. I reinvested as well in 2020. This cycle, as I say, I've missed out, but I may well play with it on futures, which I will explain in a bit. But just before we go on, I need to kind of do some educational stuff. If you want to learn from me, learning crypto, there's 70% off annual plans till the 1st of December. Like I say, it's educational stuff. It's more about Discord, about education, tutorials, education, live streams, all that kind of stuff, courses as well. So make sure you kind of don't fall down the rabbit hole of technical analysis without doing some actual genuine education. So before I go into the charts, I know that Cardano is very, very hyped right now, and there's a lot of people getting really kind of like a bit overexcited maybe, and I don't mind, you know, the situation around an asset, and we can see that with MicroStrategy and other assets where people are getting a little bit bullish, which is fine. But sometimes you got to think, let's have a little bit of realism here because of the size of what the project already is. The key word is already is. It's already a big project. So going back, right, and we're looking at this parabolic run, this is only showing you a part of the story. Big consolidation, big markup to the upside, right? A big melt up essentially, right? Broken through and looking good. If I go to the 3-day time frame, you're going to start noticing, well, it has actually had a huge fall from grace. The weekly time frame, even further. And that's the thing. The first real element that this has to do, and as I say, I talk about this a lot on my Patreon in terms of the technicals, we have to see whether it can surpass its all-time high. And I think, spoiler alert, yes, it will. Pretty easily. And I'll explain why in a minute. Now, with that, there's still a long way to go. And people can be saying, well, is it too late to buy? No, I don't think it is. And I personally am waiting for a correction for futures. So I will not buy in spot, but I will buy with futures. I'll go on cross. I'll have a decent amount of float, and I'll use lower leverage. And I'll explain what I do in a minute. But the reality is simple. Dino coins, and I know some people disagree with me, will always pump because existing people from prior cycles will come back and they will go, oh, Cardano, I know that one, I'll buy that one. Polkadot, I know that one, I'll buy that one. VeChain, I know that one, I buy that one, right? Straightforward, isn't it? Really, it is. So let's talk about this, right? So let's just clear the chat. Boom, start fresh. What we need to find out is where can we go? So from the previous high to the low, this is where we are. We've bounced beyond the 382, and we've also used it. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see it. Sorry. You'll see that now we've got this little wick here. We've already went and tested it. That's a good sign. So we still, in my opinion, got a long way to go. It depends on how you look at it. It will pull back though. I think it will pull back personally, right? Obviously, yes, if Bitcoin fucks off and goes well beyond 100K, maybe not pull back in the USD pair, but the BTC pair might. So that's our situation. When we talk about where can it go prior the all-time high or beyond it, well, we'll look at that in a minute. But the realistic situation is there's always going to be a lot of potential sell orders here, which we have corrected from. We've got the 382, which is always, $1.31. going up and up. You get the idea, right? I know people want to know, well, where are we going to go next? Well, this level here, $4.88, sorry, could be a very, very interesting level, the 1.618, which is in the USD pair. But I think we're going to blast through that. As I say, I will explain why in a minute. Personally, I think around $8 is probably more the benchmark where we should be expected. And the reason being the BTC pair. So, if you want to take a punt on it, I think we're early to this, in a way, kind of. And I know this is going to sound really odd to say, but it's like any altcoin. You've got to wait for it to wake up a little bit sometimes with an altcoin. And the big element around this and the big elephant in the room is, well, what's going to happen with Bitcoin? What if Bitcoin, takes off? The USD pair might reflect, but the BTC pair might not. But we need to look at the BTC pair in a minute. And when we talk about, well, futures trading, for example, right? I use Bluefin, the only thing you can use in the UK at the minute if you're in the UK. Link below. I recommend you get an account before they shut it off because, yes, there's always going to be situations where you can potentially shut these off. It's a pain in the ass. Obviously, I don't have much money in my account at the minute. I've got most of mine in existing orders right now. But I am looking to just basically use cross-leverage, like on low, putting a couple of positions to work, and just seeing what happens, right? Realistically, that's the kind of the game at the minute in the bull market. I do need to replenish. That's my job for after this video before I get liquidated. Oopsie. So yeah, link below. So that's my play with it. But let's talk about the nitty gritty. This is the Bitcoin pair. So simple maths time. Prior high is here. I don't think we're going to go here. We're going to look at the Cardano dominance as well. Now, in terms of why I think we're going to go much higher, now, even if we're going to go up to these levels here, let's just say 3x, right? 3x from here is, a decent chunk of money if you look at the maths, but that's with Bitcoin at its current price. What if Bitcoin goes up and doubles? Well, there you go. That's going to make it even more money. That's going to make it roughly works out roughly a 6x in terms of value appreciation, because obviously if this is going to buy 3 times, that's worth more in the BTC pair, therefore it'll be worth more in dollars. That is why when I look, right, at the likes of this at like potentially $7, I think, well, it's actually pretty easily possible, because I don't think Bitcoin's going to stop at 100k. I think it's going to go to 150, 200k. Therefore, if the Satoshis stay at roughly 1,000 Satoshis or maybe a bit higher than that, well, for a fact if Bitcoin doubles in price, this will go to like $2. Obviously, yes, if Bitcoin then does really well and stays at that price level, and also the BTC pairs of said assets do very well as well in an alt season, this is going to be worth a hell of a lot more. And that gives us a bit of a mad number. But the reality is, though, and as I go to it, some of these, even if then I don't think they're going to go to these all-time highs here. I think it's too powerful. But if it corrects a little bit, it could easily do a 6x. Easily. Really easily. And that's the thing. And again, when we look at the past, it went all the way up here in the first cycle, and then obviously melted, and then went all the way up here. It could go even higher. It could go up to like 4x, right? 4x. Imagine 4x in your Bitcoin in Cardano. And you think, oh, the downside kind of so obvious. Kind of is at that situation where it's not too bad. But as I've alluded to it, right? What if Bitcoin corrects? Oh, well, no, sorry. If Bitcoin goes higher and this then corrects in the BTC pair, you're going to get a really good order potentially. So be mindful of that, because I think for me, that is a very, very big push and it hasn't had a correction. But ultimately, Bitcoin's tickling on the end of potentially retesting 100k again. So then it gets a bit more interesting. So we need to look at that as a factor. But for me, it looks very, very interesting. Putting this in real numbers, right? And if we're going to go for a price target of, say, $7, it's a $250 billion market cap, which isn't too scary, in my opinion, considering where it is today. It's currently, as you can see, $38.2 billion. And $7 doesn't seem too far out of the realm of possibility, in my opinion, certainly when we think about an alt season and going for the obvious play. And I think some of the obvious plays will be very, very obvious, and you probably will get caught out by them. However, we need to wait to see what happens with Bitcoin, because as I say, the BTC pair and the USD pair will react in certain ways. This will look amazing, it will go up, but it may well go down in the BTC pair. So you've got to be mindful. This has been one of the top performers over the last couple of weeks versus others. So when you look at the other markets, you may find that the BTC pair hasn't even run at all, but the USD pair has. Both of these have, and that's the important factor. So when we talk about that, price predictions and stuff, it's going to be very, very interesting. But for me, it could be very interesting. In terms of the BTC pair, doing some simple technical analysis, as I said before, that was giving you a what-if scenario. Well, I'm going to put a bit more certainty to it and go, well, actually, for me, there's a lot of clout around this 50% mark in terms of potential corrections, retracements, and where things have kind of been and gone. Also, you got 618 levels from this prior high here, this high here, and obviously where it melted through, and kind of somewhat went to go and correct towards it. You could be looking at 4,000 sats. Now, for me, I think 4,000 sats is a potential area for this to go to would be amazing, because what would that give us in real-term value from today's prices? That would be nearly a 4x, give or take, in terms of your Bitcoin, give or take, right? Which would be pretty awesome. However, we'll see. But that being said, if Bitcoin does a 2x from here, 180k, or maybe a little bit, nearly 200k, and then that does a 4x, well, could be worth $7-8 in my opinion. And I think that's just being conservative. It just depends on what it does. This can go much higher. But the final thing to talk about is the .D, dominance. And again, it's similar sort of chart, as you can see here in terms of the market. But the prior all-time high, it was roughly 4% of the entire market. 4%. What is it right now? 1.13. So yes, you could argue it could come down, it could correct. Of course it can. Bitcoin could go on a run and it could take away the dominance and it could give you that lower BTC pair value, but it will then return the favor back in the future in the alt seasons as Bitcoin is higher anyways. So when we look at that, there's a lot of room to kind of go up towards these highs. 3.35%. There's a long way to go here. For me, yeah, it's an obvious play on the table. It's got a decent community, decent products out there. There's some meme coins out there. But as I say, all depends on one thing. Bitcoin dominance. What's going to happen next? Are we going to spike higher because Bitcoin's blew through 100k? Or is this going to start melting and we're going to start seeing the returns of the altcoins? Let me know what you think.